Whenever there is disease or illness or injury of the body, it's so helpful if one knows what the root cause is. Then they know the prescription, the solution, not just addressing the symptoms, but going right to the root, to the seed, to heal. The same applies spiritually. The illness of the soul, the deep distress of humanity. To know what's at the root, rather than just responding to the symptoms. What's behind the fear, anxiety, anger, uncertainty, stress, and even disheartenment? What's at the root? The true state of the soul, the healthy state of the soul, is to be light, free, liberated. Able to travel through time lightly. That is a sign of well-being, lightness of spirit, easiness, peacefulness. But if I start to hold on, I become heavy. I think I'm filling up, but it's an illusion. I'm just becoming heavy. I am an eternal being, a traveler through time. Imperishable. And yet I keep snagging, attaching to what is perishable, temporal. This is the root cause of all my discomfort. Subtle or gross attachment. Attaching to people, to things, to expectations. Making me heavy of heart. There is one thing I can attach to that will make me light. As an eternal being, attaching to what is eternal, beyond the temporal. My eternal identity as a soul, my eternal home, the state of silence, and the one soul I eternally belong to, my eternal parent, the Supreme Soul. These are attachments that make me light. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Good evening to tonight's interview with the Raj Yogi. And our topic is letting go of the temporary. I was just listening to the commentary, and I was also thinking about perhaps just some comments I hear from souls, whether it's Raja Yoga or just those who are just struggling. What is this letting go? It's a power. And what would you say to, let's say, just someone who knows nothing about spirituality? How is letting go possible?
I don't know if it's possible on its own. So, without a lot of violence. So usually we think of it more as replacing. So I think everyone's kind of used to that, and they actually use it a lot if they are finding they're being really harassed or tormented by certain thoughts. They'll distract themselves for a while, and what they're doing is replacing. So they're shifting the focus for a little while, and then while that other stimuli is there, they are able to be distracted, but then it comes back again, so it's not permanent.
I would say maybe it's a gross assumption, but it feels like majority of souls know that materialism is not the end game, that it's quite superficial. Probably many are actually also very disinterested in it. So equating that to the temporary. But souls are sharing, well, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to change.
Yeah, I think we may have a couple of strikes against us with that respect. We realize that this isn't really what we want, but we don't know what the other options are. And at that point, we're in some ways sort of so familiar, so addicted, if you will, to something that we don't really like anymore. But now it's a deep attachment, deep habit. So these are two strikes against us in some ways.
It's interesting you were sharing about this replacement. We seem to know that, but at the same time, we seem to struggle because you hear, I need to clear my mind in meditation, or I'm trying to stop my thoughts, battling with my thoughts. It seems like there's a disconnect between what I might think I understand and what's happening with my behavior, what's going on inside.
I think first off, if we're talking about replacement, again, this lack of options, the replacement has to be pretty compelling because I'm so addicted. And the other piece is to realize that it's going to take time. That yes, I recognize I need to let go, and okay, I've got a compelling alternative here, but I've been spending a lot of time with this other thing over here. So I'm ready to let go, but it just doesn't seem to want to let go of me. so it keeps entering the mind and the heart. So have to stay very determined, stay with it. If I realize this is what needs to happen, it can take time. Again, we say, if someone say wants to lose weight, it's not going to happen overnight.
I would say that there's something for those and regular students, and maybe we've heard it for so long, but just really entrenched habits. And it was a class about not being disheartened, and that even when you react, to not be disheartened, to actually just observe the reaction. I'm not sure if many ever even think about mindfulness that way, or if they even think about the level of understanding and the level of letting go that's required. If you can share about that, because I think when you hear spirituality, most don't even realize that they're probably trying so hard to control their thoughts, trying to control their reactions, or trying not to have any reactions. And when they do, it's like this constant judging of the self and not realizing that's not really it's not a part of the journey of letting go.
I feel that one thing that's really helpful in anything really is to kind of set oneself up for success. And I don't know if we give ourselves that opportunity in terms of knowing what to expect, know what's going to happen in terms of change, that there's going to be resistance, opposition, and what that might look like. But more importantly, that I take the time to really create a good foundation to work from in this journey of transition. And in spirituality, that foundation is sense of self. Trying to do any of these methods in the wrong alignment is never going to go well. So really having to take the time to create a good foundation, to be aware of what to expect along the way, is kind of helping to set us up for success.
You often mention about understanding, how much understanding plays a role in terms of letting go. And what have you observed through these years in Raj Yoga in terms of being able to sensify? My understanding is quite intellectual still versus really going into reality. I was interested in listening to one of the seniors share tonight, and she was talking to someone who was mentioning they're having all these large group lectures, and she's saying, so what are you doing in those lectures? Like going deep into knowledge. and the senior says, what's the point? What are you trying to do? Like if unless souls are actually gaining power, like, is there really a point to that? I found that quite interesting. The illusion of trying to learn more, but what is really Raj Yoga about? It seems to be a trap that many can get themselves into.
Yes, I think again, to know what's going to happen on the journey and that there is opposition and the different forms that opposition can take. And we call some of them royal forms, where basically it looks like something good is going on, but not really. So I can be, working with spiritual knowledge, and that's what I'm supposed to do. But the end game is some practical results. So if it's not getting to the level of heart, of feelings, then that's a sign that this may have actually gone into the wrong camp. All my activity might be in sort of service to the opposition forces. So I really have to check if there is some practical, and taking the time, like really slowing things down. We're I don't know, we've got some very interesting ideas about progress. And I really enjoyed a response that was given tonight. I found it very, very powerful. It had to do with the first student, Brahma Baba, and what did that sort of decision to throw themselves completely into the spiritual journey. What did that look like? How long did it take? Did it just happen in a second? And I think we all romanticize and say, oh yeah, no, he just boom. But I liked how I said, no, he took the time to understand, experiment, and then decide. I found that extremely powerful. That it's not just some sort of head thing, definitely not, but also, again, to create that foundation, to take the time to really practically, because it's going to ask me to let go. So the idea here was, if there's understanding, if there's realization, then the letting go would be very natural. I can't fake that. It will be violent. So we say this is an organization that puts mothers in front, and that's a signal that we do everything without violence. So, or that we do everything with understanding. It's the exact same thing. So I have to kind of constantly check if I've sort of been blindsided by the opposition. I don't actually know that that's happening.
I'm just going to put you on the spot. I was wondering if you can think of any examples like that in I don't know, physicality, where we do that, where we go deep into something intellectual, but it's sort of losing the point, because it does seem like, it's quite deceptive. Yeah, I just notice sometimes when we don't, at least I really appreciate inner fitness. I love hearing about the parallels, not just for the sake of it, but really be able to see myself and seeing any of these types of deceptions inside.
Yeah, actually, was working with a client this morning, ridiculously strong and capable. Their background, a lot of their background is heavy lifting, Olympic lifting, weightlifting, and very often, not always, I won't generalize, but you can see it happening. Their posture starts to have a certain appearance that is very much shaped by working what we call the superficial muscles. And one of this, it's a bit of a shortening of their posture. Their ribs, they kind of look like they're constantly contracting their rectus abdominis, and it shortens. Now, when deep muscles, which are the ones we care about, those are the ones that actually protect the spine. When they fire, they actually lengthen the spine. So this is a constant thing we're having to work, because he thought, I'm getting strong. This is a good thing. But actually, the superficial muscles were getting strong. Those are the ones that those aren't the ones that will help you in day-to-day life. And he even found, he has a little toddler, and he's like, yeah, I've noticed I'm doing it even when I'm holding them. It's like, yeah, it's gonna lead to some issues eventually. So it appears that something very progressive has been going on. The rectus abdominis, and this is a classic conversation in the fitness world, is we've got deep and superficial, and those are the anatomical terms. I'm not insulting anyone. Those are actually the terms that are used. They both have a purpose, but you want the deep ones to be developed first, and then it's okay. Maybe the superficial will follow. So the rectus abdominis helps with flexion. I don't know about you, but I do not go through the day walking around dovening all over the place. I don't know about you, but maybe you do. But that's the rectus abdominis. Okay, it's helping to flex my spine. Think abdominal crunch, classic thing people like. But actually, the deep muscles are very subtle, and they actually protect the architecture of the spine, and they'll lengthen. You'll get taller. So it looks like I'm progressing. I have signs that I'm progressing, because the six-pack showing up. But I'm actually causing a little bit of damage or setting myself up for vulnerability. So we often will find these people who are super strong can't balance. So they're more vulnerable to falls eventually. Their performance is going to be very different. So I think that sometimes we have these indicators of progress that may be a bit of an illusion. And we'll have that statement in our lessons that, even good students are not doing this, which always fascinates me. So the level of, again, my foundation is self-respect. The more that's there, then the more honest I can be with myself, and not succumb to false sense of progress, but really give myself the opportunity to have deep, accurate progress.
I know you had shared that it's not an overnight thing. What do souls do when? It's like, you mentioned in fitness, the hip flexors are always firing. It's like those old habits that just keep firing and firing. And for some, they hear meditation and they just totally fall asleep, or they hear think before you think and then they analyze, or or they don't even know that they're just trying to control the thoughts, and that's really not. It's just like, just watching these habits come up, and what to do.
What to do? I don't know, Norvin, what to do. I really liked a feeling that was given in our lesson today, and it's trying to tell us how to do something, we say, new amidst the old. This is an extremely challenging art to master. The old just keeps, the hip flexors keep firing. The old just keeps kicking in. And so really have to have, and this comes back to our topic, which I suppose we should include somewhere, a very high level of detachment while I'm in a situation to emerge some different response amidst the old. Now, in fitness circles, we do this by maybe putting people in a zero gravity situation. So if someone's hit, we'll have them lie down. We'll take gravity out of the equation so that there is the opportunity for the weaker muscle, the accurate one, to fire. This was the intention of meditation, but you can see how strong the resistance forces are, that most people do fall asleep. It's really fascinating what's going on. It's like an epidemic of souls falling asleep in meditation when that's our opportunity. We're not doing anything. We're not acting. We're completely quiet. We can focus completely on experiencing the new or the original, however you wish to think of it. And yet we're falling asleep. I think the opposition forces are just full throttle. So I have to figure out how to stay engaged in that zero gravity situation. It's again connect to royal forms, because then it's like, oh, but I'm doing service, I'm progressing. So we're wide awake when we're running around doing things. And the one thing that we need to really master, we're falling asleep. So if that isn't even realized to be a problem, then I'm not going to do anything about it. And I will carry on. And the hip flexors will keep firing. So nothing's going to change if I don't even realize something, again, out of self-respect, something isn't quite accurate in my journey.
So it wasn't meant to digress, but the reason for that question is what's going to break that vicious cycle. And I remember you had mentioned about this lovely, it was a psychology experiment where you had babies on one side and their mothers on the other side. And, the way that the floor that was chosen for which they walk, they crawl, so not walk, is transparent like glass. So there's a huge, tremendous drop. But when you would share that, massively hesitant to crawl over that, because for them, perception is there's nothing for you to crawl on. But when they see their mothers like that, that recognition enables them to overcome. What is the relationship between recognition and going into reality? Because when you were talking about Brahma Baba, this level of determination you had, is there a connection between realization, so recognition, determination, and realization to really break through? And do we maybe not nurture that recognition enough? So it's like, oh yeah, that does speak to me, but does that sort of fizzle through time, that I lose patience, that I don't wait for the real thing because I've kind of forgotten why I was doing this?
I would actually probably throw in there too, relationship. once the relationship with the self, because this was the other thing I really enjoyed tonight, is this idea that, okay, if I figure out that I belong to God, then I will engage in this activity that he's asking me to. And what was suggested is actually, well, who belongs to God? So the relationship with the self actually came first. It's I, the soul, who belongs to. That's always the moment that is where we're kind of falling down, I think, is the relation. This is why we fall asleep the whole night. It's incredibly, it's a game changer, really, to have a deep, deep recognition or the relationship with the self changes. And then comes relationship with God, relationship with the truth. So I'm able to do these things, these forms of letting go, surrender, because I'm now very attached to that one. I have a relationship. So again, are things unfolding in the order they need to? And if they're not, then definitely take the time to address it. This, when it comes to fitness, I mean, this is the way it works. You can't do more advanced if your foundation isn't in place.
I know we're running out of time. I don't even know what time it was when we started the interview, but perhaps maybe final question, because this runs full circle to letting go of the temporary. There was so much in my mind about, the quality of belonging to God, because, we use that term a lot. I love you, God, I belong to you. And so when you were talking about it's about soul consciousness, it seems to be, comes back to even the questions, am I really letting go, or is it again just an intellectual thing? And if you should just maybe for the final sharing, just share a bit more in terms of the quality of that belonging
to God.
Mm-hmm. In terms of soul consciousness.
I think, we don't want any disheartenment. So however I say that and experience that, it is valuable, it is valid. But in terms of the destination that Raj Yoga is promising, this elevation of self, I obviously want to have a very good quality. And when we say that, very aligned with the truth experience of this belonging. So this idea that it's actually not Judy who belongs to God, but I, the soul, belong to God. The more I can only really know God, experience God through the lens of my own stage. And I always used to find that fascinating when I first came into this study, and I realized there were people from all sorts of walks of life, people that we would not, in our very closed-minded ways, typically think would, be on this path, like very high-powered corporate people were in the study. And I used to sit and say, what is their relationship with God like? Because I was looking at them as this corporate person, whereas they had already moved on to soul, right? So they were having this incredible relation with God as I, the soul, not the high-powered corporate person, but I, the soul. So we all are having our own experience of God, but it is determined by the degree that I can come into the truth, become soul conscious. So it's not really just, oh, well, this is my background, and so this is it's actually determined by how much I come into soul consciousness.
Thank you, Jenny. Ben. Thank you to those online. We'll just have a little reflection.
I think we let go of the topic as well. I'm not sure how much it was in there. That's okay. Such a huge part of sustaining myself on this journey of letting go while not experiencing any loss is to maintain a sense of meaningfulness in every step I take. appreciate the significance of every step I take. Ultimately, what is this study for? What is the spiritual journey for? It's about letting go of everything that damages my heart and embracing taking hold of everything that heals my heart. It's a wonderful kind of letting go. And my focus is actually on what I get to take hold of, such that the letting go is natural. I am taking hold of a very deep, profound, beautiful experience of myself as a soul. An eternal being never dies, filled with so much capacity, beauty, humanity. I'm taking hold of that. And very naturally, the image starts to fall away. The lack of self-respect starts to fall away. I focus on what I am embracing, and letting go comes naturally. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Just a warm reminder, there is an English workshop, I believe. Let's take a look here. I believe it's the 28th, 29th. We do have an English workshop once a month at the Inner Peace Center, but we do want to let souls know it is only on site. So you are welcome to register through the website as well as through Eventbrite. So just when you're actually making sure, because souls have had questions, there is an online section and an on-site section. So just be very mindful. Some of the on-site sections might not show up on the online. So please do not confuse yourself. So yes, the next English workshop is October 22nd. Yes, quality of thoughts creates quality of life. So that's on a Sunday, 12 o'clock to 3:30 on site, to my knowledge, from what I've been confirmed. But as well, stay tuned for other Raja Yoga courses that are being offered. Usually it alternates English and Hindi in terms of the foundations. That's happening on the Wednesdays at 6:30 to 8 o'clock. And then there is oftentimes, I believe, a Raja Yoga full course that's happening in November as well. So find all of that on the website, as well as drop in online and on-site sessions too. Thank you so much. Om Shanti.